Chapter 1. Most traders spend their time analyzing what legendary traders trade instead of how they think while trading. They study instruments, time frames, setups, indicators, and execution models. They zoom in on entries and exits, trying to replicate visible actions. What rarely gets examined is the internal framework that shapes those actions in the first place. Decisions are born from perception, and perception is shaped by psychology. When someone copies surface behavior without understanding the internal lens behind it, the results feel inconsistent and confusing. The structure may look identical, yet the experience and outcomes feel different because the mental architecture underneath has not been rebuilt. Spend enough time observing traders and patterns begin to surface. Many pursue validation through accuracy. They want precision. They want to anticipate correctly. They want to feel aligned with the market's direction in a way that reinforces their intelligence. Even when someone claims they are indifferent to being right, their reactions often reveal something deeper. Winning streaks elevate confidence in a way that feels personal. Losses can trigger frustration that feels disproportionate to the actual capital at risk. Identity subtly intertwines with short-term results, and that attachment creates instability beneath the surface. Legendary traders carry a noticeably different emotional posture. Accuracy matters to them in a practical sense, yet it does not define them. Their self-concept remains grounded in execution quality rather than prediction success. They value adherence to process, clarity of decision-making, and alignment with their framework. Winning remains important financially, yet it does not become a reflection of personal worth. There is a steadiness in how they relate to outcomes that feels unusual when compared to the average trader's emotional rhythm. You can observe this difference by paying attention to your internal dialogue after a trade closes. When a position ends in loss, what thought arrives first? Is it analytical curiosity about what occurred within the structure, or is it self-judgment wrapped in hindsight? That internal tone reveals where ego lives inside your trading. Legendary traders still possess ego. They simply anchor it in discipline rather than outcome. Their pride attaches to following their rules with precision. Their satisfaction comes from behavioral consistency. This orientation feels unfamiliar at first because most environments reward immediate results. Education rewards correct answers. Sports reward points on the board. Business rewards revenue milestones. Trading operates within probability, and short sequences often fail to communicate the true strength of a method. Legendary traders internalize this dynamic deeply. They understand that short-term fluctuation exists within larger statistical distributions. Because of that understanding, they maintain emotional equilibrium across wins and losses. Their detachment carries a calm quality. It does not resemble indifference, it resembles composure. A loss registers as information. A win registers as information. Both become part of a broader dataset rather than commentary on identity. They do not interpret each outcome as evidence of advancement or decline. They recognize that progress in trading unfolds across extended sequences, and that recognition stabilizes their interpretation of events. Many traders can recall moments after a loss when they reopened their platform simply to look at the account balance again. The action may appear analytical on the surface, yet it often carries emotional undertones. Legendary traders focus attention elsewhere. They review execution. They evaluate whether their framework was honored. They assess alignment rather than replaying the emotional weight of the number itself. This mindset centers on separating identity from short-term performance. Emotion continues to exist. It simply does not control interpretation. Outcomes are recorded, studied, and contextualized without being woven into personal narratives. Legendary traders guard their psychological baseline carefully because they understand that behavior flows from state and results flow from behavior. Stability in state supports stability in execution. Strategy adjustments frequently arise from shifts in confidence rather than objective degradation of edge. Legendary traders recognize the difference between data-driven refinement and emotionally driven modification. Discomfort can sit alongside discipline without forcing immediate change. That tolerance allows their systems to breathe across sufficient sample sizes. From the outside, their steadiness can appear uneventful. It lacks dramatic intensity. It looks repetitive, almost understated. That repetition is intentional. Markets move with volatility, and human emotion mirrors that volatility easily. Legendary traders maintain internal consistency regardless of external fluctuation. Their nervous systems remain measured across green days and red days alike. Confidence swings tied to recent outcomes gradually flatten through repetition. Over time, identity loosens its connection to individual trades. When self-perception remains stable across outcomes, clarity improves naturally. Decisions become cleaner because they are no longer burdened with the need to protect image or repair ego. Pause for a moment and reflect on whether your sense of competence shifts after a difficult session. That awareness alone can illuminate patterns that previously felt invisible. Many traders remain entangled with short-term P&L because trading exposes vulnerability in a uniquely direct way. Legendary traders evolve beyond seeking confirmation from the market about who they are. If this reframing shifts how you view recent trades, take a moment to like the video as a marker of attention. Insights around identity can fade quickly in the presence of market noise. Clarity benefits from reinforcement. This foundational mindset rarely draws attention. It does not promise dramatic transformation or secret advantage. Yet it quietly supports every other psychological strength required for longevity. When identity separates from outcome, volatility becomes information rather than a verdict. From that stability, patience begins to grow in a way that feels grounded rather than forced. That form of patience carries a discipline deeper than waiting, and it opens the door to the next shift in perspective. Chapter 2. Spend enough time around traders and you begin to notice how frequently decisions are shaped by tempo rather than analysis. Urgency rarely announces itself loudly. It arrives quietly through subtle acceleration. A chart begins moving quickly and attention tightens. A breakout forms and breathing shifts almost imperceptibly. A session feels slow and the mind searches for activity simply to avoid the discomfort of inactivity. The pressure often feels logical in the moment. Productivity feels important. Participation feels necessary. Action feels responsible. Beneath those sensations sits a deeper impulse tied to missing opportunity, and that impulse can quietly reshape behavior without ever feeling dramatic. Legendary traders develop a relationship with pace that feels unusually steady. Their rhythm holds even when the market becomes chaotic. Fast candles do not automatically produce fast decisions. Strong momentum does not immediately compress their process. They carry an internal tempo that remains consistent across calm sessions and volatile ones. That steadiness influences everything about how they interpret opportunity. While price accelerates externally, their evaluation process continues at the same measured cadence. Anyone who has traded long enough recognizes the physical sensation that appears when a move begins forming. Attention narrows toward the chart. Thoughts become shorter and sharper. The mind anticipates the possibility of missing a move that appears obvious in hindsight. That sensation feels human because it is human. Legendary traders learn to recognize the moment when market speed begins influencing internal speed. Awareness becomes a form of protection. They notice the feeling early enough that it loses authority over execution. Urgency carries emotional weight. It creates a subtle sense of obligation. A trade begins to feel necessary rather than optional. Legendary traders treat that internal pressure as information about their state. The sensation becomes something to observe rather than obey. When impulses toward quick action appear, evaluation becomes slower and more deliberate. Attention widens instead of narrowing. Breathing steadies. Decisions regain space. Think back to trades that still linger in memory long after they closed. Many regrets are connected to moments where tempo shifted slightly. An entry taken a few seconds earlier than usual. Position size adjusted upward because confidence surged. A checklist shortened because the setup appeared obvious. Those small accelerations rarely feel reckless while they happen. They feel efficient. Over time, repeated accelerations accumulate consequences that quietly reshape consistency. Legendary traders understand that pace influences outcomes as much as strategy does. Knowledge alone rarely determines long-term survival. Execution quality depends heavily on emotional rhythm. Once decisions begin moving faster than a trader's framework allows, clarity fades gradually. Legendary traders guard their pace with unusual care because they understand how quickly internal acceleration distorts perception. Their discipline extends beyond entry rules into the tempo of thinking itself. You can see this composure when strong moves unfold without their participation. Price travels far. Momentum expands. Screenshots circulate across social media showing dramatic gains. Legendary traders often watch these moments pass without emotional turbulence. Acceptance plays a large role here. Markets produce endless opportunity across time. Individual moves carry less emotional weight when viewed through that wider lens. Participation becomes selective rather than reactive. Watching price travel without involvement can feel uncomfortable. The sensation resembles standing still while others appear to advance. Many traders experience stronger emotional discomfort from missing a clean move than from taking a manageable loss. That emotional signal reveals where urgency hides. The desire to remain involved can quietly override patience. Legendary traders cultivate emotional security around absence. A session without trades can still feel complete. Observation remains valuable work. Small accelerations compound across months more than dramatic mistakes ever do. Slightly earlier entries, slightly larger risk, slightly looser confirmations. Each adjustment may appear harmless in isolation. Over extended sequences, they shape behavior patterns that gradually drift away from stability. Legendary traders focus intensely on maintaining a consistent internal state because they understand how behavior compounds through repetition. Recognition becomes a trained skill. Urgency leaves fingerprints, a tightening chest, a sense of needing to act quickly, thoughts narrowing toward a single outcome. Legendary traders notice these signals through experience rather than forceful self-control. Awareness interrupts momentum naturally. Sometimes they step away briefly. Sometimes they reduce exposure. Sometimes observation replaces participation entirely. These choices preserve clarity across long careers. You can experiment with this awareness during your next session. Notice how quickly the desire to act appears after a strong move begins. Pay attention to moments when participation feels mandatory. That sensation often carries valuable information about emotional state. Legendary traders develop curiosity toward those moments. They ask quiet questions internally before committing capital. If this perspective feels familiar, leave a comment about a time when speed influenced a decision more than analysis did. Writing it down anchors the insight in memory. Many traders examine strategy endlessly while overlooking tempo. Execution rhythm often shapes longevity as much as technical knowledge ever will. Confidence begins to change when urgency loosens its grip. Sessions stop feeling like races against time. Stillness becomes comfortable. Watching without acting no longer creates tension. Psychological energy lasts longer throughout the day because decisions occur within a controlled pace. Legendary traders conserve attention deliberately, understanding that clarity matters most when opportunity finally aligns. Burnout often grows from sustained internal acceleration rather than difficulty itself. Maintaining a frantic rhythm drains focus over weeks and months. Legendary traders treat trading as an extended endeavor. Energy management becomes part of preparation. Calm attention allows sharper perception when conditions truly matter. Spectacle gradually loses influence as pace stabilizes. Large candles and dramatic moves provide information without triggering emotional excitement. Volatility becomes context rather than temptation. Decisions emerge from alignment with framework rather than visual intensity. Many traders recognize moments when a trade was taken primarily because it looked powerful. Legendary traders grow familiar with that sensation and allow it to pass without immediate reaction. Deliberateness becomes visible in their execution. Risk remains present, yet it is chosen consciously within boundaries that preserve clarity. Exposure aligns with readiness. Selectivity strengthens consistency over time. The market continues moving endlessly, and legendary traders participate when rhythm, structure, and state align naturally. If this chapter shifts how you think about speed during your sessions, take a moment to like the video as a reminder to revisit this awareness later. Adjustments in tempo rarely appear inside textbooks, yet they influence nearly every decision made in front of the chart. As urgency fades, perception begins to stretch outward. Thinking expands beyond individual sessions into longer sequences. Evaluation starts occurring across broader horizons. That expansion introduces the next rare mindset, one rooted in how legendary traders relate to time itself and how progress unfolds across far longer arcs than most people initially expect. Chapter 3. Legendary traders carry a relationship with time that feels unusually spacious. Their thinking stretches far beyond individual sessions or even individual months. Development unfolds across seasons of learning, refinement, and gradual capital expansion. Identity as a trader evolves alongside those cycles. Many people evaluate progress through short windows because daily outcomes feel immediate and emotionally loud. A strong month can feel like confirmation of mastery. A difficult stretch can feel like regression. Legendary traders widen their lens so far that individual months settle into the background of a much longer story. This perspective grows from deep familiarity with probability. They experience probability as something lived rather than simply understood. Sequences unfold unevenly. Momentum appears and disappears. Periods of friction exist alongside periods of flow. Growth rarely travels in straight lines. Expectation adjusts around that reality. Fluctuations begin to resemble texture rather than disruption. Drawdowns, recoveries, and plateaus form recognizable rhythms inside a larger distribution. Many traders intellectually agree with long-term thinking while emotionally reacting to short-term discomfort. Awareness alone does not automatically change reaction. Legendary traders develop emotional trust in their process through repetition and observation. Journals accumulate, data expands, self-knowledge deepens. Temporary setbacks lose their ability to redefine identity because experience provides context. Decisions remain anchored to framework rather than recent emotion. Sample size becomes a trusted companion. Modern trading culture places enormous attention on immediacy. Screenshots circulate quickly. Weekly payouts receive celebration. Short streaks gather attention. Growth appears compressed into highlight reels. That environment quietly reshapes expectations around speed. Legendary traders build comfort with long stretches of quiet progress. Sessions accumulate without announcement. Improvement unfolds privately through repetition and review. Compounding becomes visible gradually rather than dramatically. Imagine months passing with steady execution and modest account change. Charts reviewed carefully. Journals filled with small observations. Exposure controlled deliberately. Many people experience restlessness during those stretches. Legendary traders recognize those periods as foundational work. Refinement continues even when external excitement fades. Emotional stability grows alongside technical skill. The process deepens beneath the surface long before results attract attention. Behavioral stability becomes a central measurement. Consistency across hundreds of sessions carries more weight than bursts of excitement. When thinking stretches toward years instead of weeks, impulsive decisions lose their appeal naturally. Emotional urgency fades because the timeline feels expansive. Each trade becomes one moment inside a long sequence rather than a defining event. You may have heard someone say they need a specific month to succeed. Pressure gathers quickly around that expectation. Legendary traders orient themselves toward endurance across extended sequences. Framework durability matters deeply. Execution quality across many sessions receives constant attention. Emotional steadiness replaces desperation as a guiding force. Clarity survives longer when outcomes do not carry the burden of immediate proof. Years ago, I heard about a trader who spent nearly an entire year refining execution with very modest growth. Exposure remained controlled. Journaling filled evenings. Friends assumed progress had stalled because results appeared quiet. Conditions aligned later, and scaling occurred naturally from a stable psychological foundation. Confidence came from familiarity with behavior rather than excitement around momentum. Preparation revealed its value gradually once opportunity expanded. Stories like that rarely attract headlines. Patience rarely travels well through fast-moving environments. Longevity quietly depends on those slower chapters. Probability rewards persistence across time. Legendary traders place energy into preparation long before acceleration appears. Each decision contributes to readiness for future conditions. Improvement often unfolds without immediate financial reward. Discipline strengthens internally first. Decision-making sharpens. Emotional reactions soften. Legendary traders accept delayed feedback as part of development. Skill compounds beneath visible results. The market eventually reflects that refinement across larger samples. Motivation remains steady because behavior itself becomes rewarding. Consider moments when you improved part of your execution. Perhaps you reduced impulsive entries or followed a checklist more carefully. Many traders expect immediate reinforcement from the market. Legendary traders remain grounded through periods where improvement feels invisible externally. Confidence grows from alignment with process rather than instant outcome. Internal validation strengthens resilience during quieter stretches. Longer horizons reshape interpretation of drawdown as well. Losing periods appear within the distribution of outcomes rather than as personal verdicts. Variance becomes familiar territory. Legendary traders anticipate fluctuation because experience repeatedly confirms its presence. Emotional reactions soften when variance appears expected. Observation replaces panic. Adjustments occur through analysis rather than impulse. Two traders can experience identical losing streaks and respond entirely differently. One spirals into doubt, adjusting size unpredictably or abandoning structure entirely. Another logs trades carefully, evaluates adherence to framework, and continues executing with measured composure. Intelligence alone does not explain the difference. Perspective across time shapes emotional reaction more than technical knowledge. Short horizons magnify every fluctuation. Each red session feels louder. Each win feels heavier. Longer horizons provide context automatically. Legendary traders practice zooming out so frequently that it becomes instinctive. The equity curve exists in their mind as an extended landscape rather than a single moment. Temporary discomfort finds its place inside that wider view. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing as a reminder to keep revisiting conversations that strengthen long-term thinking. Short-term noise has a way of creeping back into decision-making when attention drifts. Surrounding yourself with ideas that reinforce patience helps anchor perspective during active markets. Expansion of horizon also reshapes comparison with others. Monthly results lose their ability to define self-worth. Screenshots become snapshots rather than measurements of trajectory. Legendary traders understand how easily visible performance can misrepresent long-term reality. Focus turns inward toward personal development rather than outward competition. Hot streaks receive quiet acknowledgement rather than loud celebration. Experience teaches that performance oscillates naturally. Confidence remains grounded through awareness of cycles. Humility grows from repeated exposure to both strong and difficult periods. Identity stabilizes when outcomes stop dictating emotional direction. Risk decisions evolve alongside this mindset. Capital preservation carries deep importance across long timelines. Compounding thrives through continuity. Psychological energy and financial resources remain interconnected. Maintaining both allows future opportunity to remain accessible. Legendary traders consider optionality constantly. Tomorrow's flexibility depends on today's restraint. Durability becomes a guiding value. Durability of mindset, durability of framework, durability of capital. Growth unfolds through steady accumulation rather than forced acceleration. Many traders feel an urge to prove capability quickly. Legendary traders eventually shift attention toward construction rather than proof. Each disciplined session becomes another brick placed carefully into a larger structure. As horizon expands, appreciation changes quietly. Dramatic volatility loses some of its emotional pull. Consistent execution begins to feel deeply satisfying. Small, disciplined sessions carry weight because they reinforce identity aligned with process. Over years, those repetitions create stability that dramatic streaks struggle to match. Respect for risk deepens naturally through this perspective. Exposure becomes something approached thoughtfully, aware of how easily momentum can distort judgment. Legendary traders carry that respect into every decision, and it leads directly into the next rare mindset. Their understanding of risk extends beyond numbers into psychological territory that many people overlook entirely. Chapter 4. Legendary traders approach risk with a depth that goes beyond percentages and reward ratios. They evaluate exposure in terms of how it affects their internal state. Every position carries financial implications, and it also carries psychological weight. Alongside the calculation of capital at stake, there is an assessment of how the outcome might influence clarity, composure, and decision-making for the remainder of the session. Risk becomes intertwined with stability of mind. Financial measurements alone never tell the whole story. A small percentage on paper can feel large internally if it disrupts focus or lingers emotionally after a loss. Legendary traders account for that multiplier intuitively. Position size reflects both mathematical logic and their capacity to remain grounded if the trade closes against them. Emotional neutrality forms part of the sizing decision long before an order is placed. On a spreadsheet, two traders can risk identical amounts and produce entirely different experiences. One maintains steady execution after a setback. The other carries tension into subsequent decisions. Emotional leverage alters the practical impact of risk. Legendary traders keep emotional leverage contained. They design exposure so that a single outcome cannot destabilize their baseline. Volatility reveals this mindset clearly. As markets expand and contract rapidly, emotional intensity tends to rise alongside price movement. Legendary traders often adjust exposure during these periods to maintain clarity. They recognize that sharp swings amplify internal reactions. Preserving composure becomes part of risk management. Capital protection and state protection operate together. Many traders naturally gravitate toward the upper edge of what feels permissible. Legendary traders often maintain a buffer within their limits. That buffer creates space for errors without cascading consequences. It supports steady breathing, flexible thinking, and measured responses. Over extended careers, that margin contributes significantly to durability. Continuity guides their perspective. Growth unfolds across years rather than isolated bursts. Margin exists in capital, patience, and emotional tolerance. The objective extends beyond maximizing a single period of returns. It includes sustaining participation across countless sessions. Each decision contributes to that continuity. Moments of confidence can influence sizing decisions in subtle ways. After a strong streak, the impulse to increase exposure may feel natural. Legendary traders evaluate those impulses carefully. Structured performance metrics and personal stability inform scaling decisions. Confidence alone does not dictate expansion. Honest self-assessment supports this approach. Legendary traders pay attention to lingering emotional reactions after losses and to heightened excitement after wins. They monitor shifts in tone, posture, and thought patterns. These observations occur quietly and consistently. Self-awareness becomes part of the professional routine. Emotional distortion accumulates gradually. A slightly oversized trade that generates tension can influence the next few choices. Decisions that appear independent often carry traces of earlier experiences. By limiting the initial disturbance, legendary traders reduce the likelihood of cascading effects. Stability at the start of a sequence supports stability throughout it. There is also a psychological relationship with size and legitimacy. Larger positions can create a sense of significance. Legendary traders focus on preserving clarity rather than signaling boldness. Their confidence rests in execution quality rather than exposure magnitude. Many traders recognize the physical sensations that accompany elevated size. Breathing tightens, attention narrows toward minute fluctuations. Flexibility decreases. Legendary traders remain attentive to those cues. Exposure is structured to maintain mental range rather than compress it. Calm thinking enhances adaptability, and adaptability improves outcomes over time. Psychological composure becomes a valued resource. It supports patience, disciplined exits, and clear assessment of evolving conditions. The market requires only small distortions to exploit inconsistency. Maintaining internal steadiness reduces those openings. Scale develops naturally when consistency compounds across extended periods. Legendary traders trust that disciplined repetition produces growth without forcing acceleration. Interviews often reveal measured language around risk. Terms such as longevity, probability, and survival appear frequently. Sustainability forms the foundation beneath visible success. Ambition to grow quickly remains understandable and powerful. Legendary traders direct that drive toward refinement of execution and enhancement of state management. Precision improves, selectivity strengthens, risk expands gradually alongside demonstrated stability. If this perspective shifts how you think about position sizing, consider leaving a comment describing how you determine your comfort threshold emotionally. Examining that layer can reveal patterns that formulas alone cannot capture. Legendary traders spend significant time understanding their own reactions as part of professional development. When exposure aligns with stability, emotional responses soften. Losses feel contained. Wins feel grounded. Discipline reinforces itself through repetition. Clarity supports performance, and performance reinforces confidence, rooted in structure rather than impulse. Over time, that feedback loop strengthens consistency across a wide range of conditions. Trading begins to feel structured and deliberate. Parameters guide behavior. Excitement becomes less central to the experience. Legendary traders gradually outgrow the desire for intensity and focus instead on durability. Sustainability shapes decision-making at every level. With risk framed through the lens of stability and continuity, a broader shift becomes possible. Ambition itself evolves. Growth takes on a different tone. That final mindset connects the previous themes into a cohesive internal architecture, shaping how legendary traders approach their craft over decades. Chapter 5. Ambition drives nearly every trader in the beginning. It carries heat. It pushes for scale, recognition, visible milestones. It imagines large months and dramatic equity curves. It fuels long study sessions and relentless chart time. That energy has value. It initiates movement and sustains effort through the early learning curve. Over time, something evolves in traders who last for decades. Ambition remains, yet its tone changes. A quieter form of ambition begins to take shape. The focus shifts toward becoming stable rather than becoming impressive. Attention moves inward. Instead of asking how large the account can grow this month, the question becomes how consistent behavior can remain under pressure. This shift transforms the entire trajectory of a career. Many traders pursue visible proof of progress. They look for dramatic acceleration. Legendary traders pursue reliability within themselves. They aim to know with calm certainty how they will behave when they sit down to trade. They narrow their behavioral range. Their reactions become measured and predictable regardless of outcome. Predictability rarely draws applause. It does not generate viral screenshots. It does not create excitement on social feeds. Yet predictability compounds quietly across years. Behavioral reliability becomes a true edge. Intelligence, access, and strategy all matter. Yet the capacity to remain steady under emotional strain magnifies every other advantage. Reliability under pressure remains rare. Promises of discipline feel easy in calm states. Pressure tests those promises. Legendary traders build pride around alignment between intention and action. Satisfaction comes from matching behavior to standards with precision. Month-end totals carry less emotional weight than the integrity of execution across each session. Growth begins to take on a different shape. Internal milestones gain significance. Questions revolve around adherence to framework, pace during volatile moments, and consistency and risk calibration. Daily profit becomes one data point among many. Process alignment becomes the primary metric. Over time, financial performance reflects that alignment. The texture of a long trading career often feels methodical from the inside. Observers may project glamour onto it later. Inside the process, repetition dominates. Journals fill gradually, routines refine, emotional regulation strengthens through countless small decisions. Stability deepens through steady practice. Humility accompanies this form of ambition. The central challenge becomes personal fluctuation. Mood, impatience, ego, and overconfidence receive careful attention. Trading becomes a practice of calibration. Each session offers feedback on state as much as on strategy. Language reveals mindset. Traders who endure tend to speak in terms of respect for the market and respect for risk. Their tone reflects awareness of asymmetry and uncertainty. Over time, intensity softens into steadiness. Confidence develops from preparation and experience rather than dramatic displays. Comparison loses much of its grip. When ambition centers on behavioral precision, external outcomes carry less influence. Focus narrows toward personal development arcs. Progress becomes measured against previous execution rather than another trader's results. This orientation reduces impulsive scaling and emotional competition. The urge to prove oneself often appears in early stages. It can energize progress. Eventually, proving gives way to building. Building involves quiet refinement. It unfolds without applause. Its reward lies in durability rather than visibility. Motivation rooted in construction sustains itself through cycles of variance and calm. External narratives shift constantly. Market conditions rotate. Strategies rise and fall in popularity. Legendary traders adapt technically while preserving psychological consistency. Their core principles remain steady even as tactics evolve. That steadiness anchors them during transitions. When ambition takes this quieter form, emotional reactions soften. Losses do not threaten identity. Missed opportunities do not create urgency. Slow growth aligns comfortably with extended timelines. Attention rests on maintaining alignment rather than chasing dramatic acceleration. The earlier mindsets weave together here. Identity separated from short-term results. Awareness of internal tempo. Long horizons, thoughtful risk calibration. Quiet ambition binds them into a cohesive structure. None of these elements depend on spectacle. Each contributes to durability. Internal restructuring unfolds gradually. Patterns surface through reflection. Small adjustments accumulate. The process feels steady rather than explosive. Over time, that steadiness shapes a career that withstands volatility both in markets and within the self. Consider what image comes to mind when thinking about becoming a great trader. Large months and dramatic wins create one picture. Stable years and consistent execution create another. The image that resonates most strongly often reveals the ambition currently guiding decisions. Legendary careers emerge from sustained steadiness. Desire remains strong, yet it channels into disciplined repetition. The relationship with oneself becomes resilient under pressure. That foundation supports every technical decision layered above it. If this perspective challenges you in a constructive way, subscribe to continue exploring these ideas. Ongoing exposure to conversations about internal calibration helps reinforce subtle shifts in mindset. Over years, those shifts reshape trajectories quietly and powerfully. Rare mindsets seldom appear dramatic. They gather strength through repetition. Accumulated patiently, they influence execution in ways no single strategy can replicate. Over time, that accumulation distinguishes enduring traders from those who burn bright briefly and fade.